Welcome back to another video, guys. Hopefully the music isn't too loud. We're going to attempt to make this video, but I want to talk about something that I have observed over 10 years of living in Southeast Asia, and that is that most foreigners don't fail immediately. Actually, the first year is usually amazing. I usually hear from people within the first year that life is great, life is wonderful. Everything feels exciting, cheap food, cheap rent, the dating is much better, different cultures, beautiful places, freedom, no more cold winters, no more stress from back home. But somewhere around year two is when things start changing for most people. Not because Southeast Asia is bad, but because living somewhere long term is very different from just visiting somewhere. And today I want to talk about why expats struggle so much usually after that honeymoon phase, the biggest mistakes people make, and how to build a sustainable life overseas. Because I've seen this happen over and over again in places like Thailand, Kenya, the Philippines, and Vietnam. And I think if you understand these things early, you can avoid a lot of unnecessary stress, bad decisions, and disappointment. Stick around for today's video.
Same four walls, same fading year. Got these plans stuck in my head. Southeast Asia calling me instead. Bangkok nights in Bali shores. Sick of dreaming, want something more. Pack your bags, don't hesitate.
I'm at this like unique little spot here. And the food court is all the way around up on the upper level, but there's like seating right there. And that's kind of where I'm at, hanging out here today in this lush little garden. And again, I like this mall because there's just like seating everywhere. Though I didn't expect the music to be quite so loud. That's usually not a thing in Thailand. It's still not really loud. It might not even be an issue. But anyway, so the first thing I want to talk about is the honeymoon phase. And that is a real thing. But I think the first mistake is that people assume that the excitement phase will last forever, and simply not true. When you first arrive in Southeast Asia, life feels easy. And this is how I always know when somebody's pretty new to Southeast Asia, is because they compare everything to back in the West. Their expensive Western country, stress, debt, isolation, cold weather, overwork. I mean, everything is just compared to the West. And again, that's always how I know when somebody's new is literally every other sentence is, well, back in the U.S. we did it like this, or back in the U.S. whether good or bad. So naturally, Southeast Asia feels great in comparison. But eventually normal life does start to return, and you still have bills. You've got routines, loneliness, health issues perhaps, relationship problems, boredom, frustrations. The location changes, but eventually life becomes life again. And I think many people just never really emotionally prepare for that. I think they think that things are just going to stay new and exciting forever, and it just doesn't happen. Second thing that I see is I think that many expats never really build a structure. And I think this is a huge one. I think a lot of foreigners move overseas with no routine, no long-term goals, no hobbies, no purpose. And I think they think that they'll just relax forever. I'll just chill and watch Netflix. I'll play video games. I'll do this. I'll do that. But really it's like their plans and long-term plans and goals, all of that goes away. And I think it's important to still have those. Again, it sounds great for about 6 months, but then suddenly maybe too much drinking starts to happen. Motivation disappears. Sleep schedules get destroyed. Spending increases. Loneliness creeps in. Very common one. And again, I've seen it so many times here. I think people underestimate how important sometimes that structure is. And honestly, I think the foreigners that do best long term, they usually have routines, exercise, hobbies, healthy relationships, productive projects, realistic budgets, and goals besides simply escaping the West. And the third one, I think, is money problems destroy many people. And before we continue into that, by the way, if you're moving out to Southeast Asia, And you want to know exactly how I prepared and what I use to travel with and things I find essential. Check out my Geo Travel Essentials at gioonthego.net. Click on Geo's Travel Essentials and see all the gear that I recommend for living or traveling overseas. So back to money problems destroy a lot of people. I think this is probably one of the biggest reasons that people eventually leave. I think a lot of foreigners come out to Southeast Asia and they assume everything will always stay cheap. They can live their life on these tiny budgets. And a lot of YouTubers are at fault for selling that dream, or their savings will just magically last. But over time, visa costs add up, flights add up, healthcare adds up, especially the older you get. Relationships cost money. Inflation happens, emergencies happen, and many people, I think, never really build financial stability. And living overseas, I think, feels a lot better when you have stable income, emergency savings, healthcare coverage, and financial breathing room. Because financial stress follows you anywhere in the world. But again, one thing that many people underestimate is healthcare. And honestly, one major medical issue can completely wreck someone financially. That's why I always recommend having good travel or international medical insurance. And the travel medical insurance I recommend is linked down in the description and also the pinned comment. Especially if you ride motorbikes, travel frequently, move between countries, or stay long-term overseas. I've seen too many people say that won't happen to me until eventually it does. By the way, a little side note on travel medical, don't expect them to pay out on a claim if you don't have a motorcycle endorsement or you aren't wearing a helmet. So just a little side note. And I think the number 5 thing is dating can either help you or destroy your experience overseas. And this is another big one that really nobody wants to speak about, honestly. And some people move overseas and they build their entire life around dating. Or a lot of people, foreigners, will just move overseas to Southeast Asia because of a girl. And maybe it was never even really intentionally their plan, but they've decided, well, okay, I'll move to the Philippines. And even more specifically, sometimes they will just move to her particular province. And that's the worst thing to do. I think you need to find which country, which city, and which neighborhood that you are happy in and want to live in. And then you find the girl, or you bring her to that location. If you move to her country, her city, her neighborhood, and you don't like it there, it's going to put a lot of stress on the relationship. So I've said this since day one. Find the place you want to be, then find the girl. Now, obviously, there are many healthy international relationships. I've seen plenty. But I've also seen people who have been drained emotionally, financially exploited, isolated, or manipulated, or have completely lost direction. And I think healthy relationships happen abroad when both people are emotionally stable, expectations are realistic, and the foreigner already has structure and purpose. Not when someone arrives desperate for escape or validation. And number 6, and this is another big one. I mean, really, any of them that I'm mentioning today are pretty big, but this one does hit home a lot for a lot of foreigners, and that is loneliness hits a little bit different overseas. And I think this surprises many people. Even in exciting places like Bangkok, Cebu, BGC, Ho Chi Minh City, Kuala Lumpur, you can still become very lonely, especially after the tourism excitement fades. Friends leave. And that happens all the time in Southeast Asia. I'm constantly meeting people, becoming good friends, and then they're off to go live in a different city, a different country, or go back to their Western country. Happens all the time. Or loneliness can happen a lot when relationship ends. A lot of times if they fail in a relationship, they're back and they go to the West. Or if routines become repetitive, sometimes people get lonely. And I think a lot of expats struggle because they never really build community, healthy friendships, or meaningful routines. And I think social media makes this worse, to be honest. I think it's ruined a lot of the dating and a lot of friendships. The thing is social media now makes it believe that everyone is constantly having a great time. They're partying, they're dancing, they're traveling, living perfectly. I mean, even YouTube, you watch the YouTube and they're like, wow, this vlogger's life looks so exciting. You got to remember that's just a small sliver of our life. But real life abroad still includes stress, boredom, loneliness, and difficult days. And number 7, and I'm guilty of this too, is that many people keep chasing the next place. And it's a pattern I've noticed. Even with myself, I seem to be like, okay, let me get to the next place. So I'm kind of bored of this place. Let me get to the next place. And so you get people who constantly move from city to city. Guilty. Country to country, condo to condo. Guilty, guilty. Always believing that the next place is going to make you happy. Now, I have a little bit of a different thinking on this. I do it sometimes often just for vlogging material. And I never really have a problem with loneliness because of YouTube. Everywhere I go, I always have people reaching out to me. So it doesn't really affect me quite the same ways it might affect other people who have a harder time meeting people and making friends. But again, you know, this happens a lot. People constantly think that the next place will finally make me happy. This is what I've been looking for. But eventually you realize that internal problems follow you everywhere. And you can't permanently escape unhappiness, insecurity, lack of purpose, or unhealthy habits. Changing countries can improve your life drastically. You know, like moving to Thailand, the infrastructure-wise has really improved my lifestyle. But it's not going to magically solve everything. And the last one, number 8, that I want to talk about is how to actually succeed living overseas long term. So what actually works? And honestly, I think the foreigners that seem happiest long term usually maintain financial stability, stay physically active, build routines, avoid fantasy thinking, continue learning and growing, maintain hobbies and goals, create healthy relationships, and treat overseas life realistically. They stop viewing Southeast Asia as an endless vacation. It's not. And they start treating it like real life. That mindset changes everything. So, in conclusion, Southeast Asia can absolutely improve your life. Honestly, for a lot of people, including me, it can be life-changing. But long-term success overseas usually comes from realistic expectations, financial stability, emotional stability, healthy habits, and building a meaningful life, not simply escaping your old one. Because eventually, that honeymoon phase does fade away. And when it does, that's when real life begins. And honestly, the people who understand that early are the ones who stay happiest long term. Thanks for watching, everybody. And if you've lived overseas or currently living overseas, I'd love to hear about your experience down in the comments. Again, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit that bell notification so you're notified every time I come up with a video or a live stream. And I'll see everyone in the next video. Ciao.
Southeast Asia calling me instead. Bangkok nights and Bali shores. Sick of dreaming, want something more. Pack your bags, don't hesitate. Gio, let's go before it's too late. Time keeps slipping away from